What's up, everybody? Liam O'Reilly, Vermont economic realtor here. Another warm day here in Vermont. Have the polo on. It is November 10th, 2022. CPI, the data just came out and it came in better than expected, which is great news. I think everyone's a little bit relieved to see that. It's obviously still very high at 7.7%, but it's good to see that at least some progress is being made, and prices are at least beginning to stabilize. Now, if you watched some of my other videos, specifically the FOMC video, we talked about how the Federal Reserve doesn't really look at that headline CPI number because that includes energy and food. And while you and me, we pay for energy and food, I mean, it's a big factor in my life. It's probably where most of my money goes to. The Federal Reserve doesn't look at it because they say that those prices are too volatile. So what they're looking at is core CPI, which is just the consumer price index without food and energy factored in. Now that came in under expected as well. It went down from its high. Its high was 6.6% in September. October came in at 6.3%. So it dropped from its high. The year-over-year growth dropped from its high. Month over month, it increased by 0.3%. It was expected to increase by 0.6%. So good news on that front. Now, in some of my other videos, I've talked about how the Federal Reserve raising interest rates, it might make housing supply or housing rents, it might make rents increase when really they're trying to get inflation under control. It might make rents increase because raising rates do two things for builders bringing new housing supply to the market. One, it makes it less certain that the end buyer will be there and they'll be able to afford their product once they finish building, because with higher interest rates, the buyer has a higher monthly payment. All of a sudden, interest rates are at 10%. They were expecting them to be at 5%. They can't afford the home that was just built for them. So that's a lot of risk on the builder. The second part is it's more expensive for the builder to borrow money to build this home. So if you're using financing to build these products, these developments, these houses to then sell to an end consumer, you have more risk. It's more expensive for you to borrow that money to pay your people, and what's still a tight labor market. So labor is still very expensive. And then after all that risk, the end buyer might not be able to afford your property, your product that you're putting out there. So something that is important to note is in core CPI, the shelter aspect of that went up 6.9% year over year. So remember, core CPI was at 6.3% year over year. The shelter aspect is at 6.9%. So it's going to be interesting to watch that moving forward. It's very possible, and I think likely, that as the Fed continues to raise their interest rates, shelter inflation, rents, are going to continue to rise. We're undersupplied when it comes to rents. Yes, there's Airbnbs out there that will convert to long-term rentals, but that's a small portion of all the homes available for rent. For instance, Burlington, I'm in Vermont, Burlington, Vermont, the largest city, they recently banned Airbnbs. Now, Burlington has 10,500 rental properties, give or take. 250 of them were Airbnbs. So we're massively undersupplied with rentals. We have 10,000 currently available, and we banned Airbnbs. 250 are coming to the market. So, that's an increase of, what is that, 2.5% roughly, which it's not nothing, but in reality, we need more housing supply. We need more houses to be built. We need more places for people to live. And I think that's the case in a lot of areas across America from what I've heard. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Fed deals with that moving forward. Something else that's really encouraging is mortgage rates dropped significantly this afternoon after hearing this news. So they were at 7%, at least some of the lenders that I work with They were offering 30-year fixed rate loans at 7% this morning. This afternoon, they dropped all the way down to 6.35%, which is huge. I mean, anybody who has a mortgage knows that the 65 basis points, the 0.65%, goes a long way when it comes to your mortgage. So, a lot of things could change between now and the next Fed funds or the Federal Reserve meeting. Mortgage rates could go back up, but it's good to see that at least they came down a little bit, and hopefully they're starting to stabilize around 6% or really anywhere. I mean, I think stable mortgage rates coming into the future are going to go a long way for the housing market. It's going to give people confidence that, like I said, the builders are going to be confident that this is the mortgage rate that their buyers are going to have when they finish their build. And buyers are going to feel confident that, hey, look, maybe rates are a little higher than they were before, but look, this is what they're going to be for the foreseeable future. If I want to buy a home in the foreseeable future, this is what I'm dealing with. And, in Vermont, prices remain relatively stable, or at least they have historically. If you're watching from another part of the country and you're in a more volatile market, or a market that historically has been prices have gone up and down as market cycles change, then maybe these rates are going to affect prices more than they will here in Vermont. But for instance, in Vermont, back in 2008, the average American housing median house price dropped by around 20%. Vermont dropped by 5%. Chittenden County, where I primarily work, dropped by less than 5%. So even if rates are higher, it's unlikely that, at least around here in Vermont, we're going to see a significant drop in pricing. It could happen, but historically it hasn't happened. And in my opinion, it's because we don't have the supply for it to happen. Enough people want to live here. There's still a lot of people coming to town, whether it's because they can work remote and they just like Vermont as a state, or a lot of people are moving because of climate change. They want to get out of the wildfires out west. They want to have a more moderate climate compared to the hot weather down south, and they're choosing Vermont as the state to move to. So there's still a lot of people moving here, and on top of that, there's people in Vermont who just want to buy a home. They like Vermont. They want to stay here. I think I'll have to dig back and get the article for this, but Vermont was one of the lowest states. It had the highest ratio, I guess, of people moving in compared to people moving out. It was something like, for every 75 people that moved in, 25 people left the state. So we were just taking on people. We don't have the housing supply for it. People don't build like crazy here, which has caused a huge pinch in the housing supply. So as far as what the rates mean moving forward, I guess we'll see. Maybe that's a topic for another video, because I could just keep going on, and we're getting close to 10 minutes here. So I'll talk about that in another video, what stable rates mean, and what the dropping rates mean. We'll leave that for another video. Other stories, other headlines. I guess the only other thing that I was gonna mention is core CPI came down a little bit. Another thing that the Federal Reserve is looking at is the unemployment data. They're weighing on that heavily. How many jobs are available for how many people are looking for jobs? That has been way out of balance over the past, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so. It feels like all of 22. So there's been, I don't know what the numbers are now. I know at one point there were twice as many jobs for people out there looking. I know that there's headlines all over the place now talking about layoffs, but at least here in Vermont, the housing market is still very tight. I mean, there's local bagel places where you can make $25 an hour just making bagels, which, look, I love bagel places. I love people who make bagels. Nothing against them. It's just that's a high number. I mean, $25 an hour for a job that college kids might do on their, in their free time or on break, or high school students could even get when they are on summer vacation. You know, entry level jobs are starting at $25 an hour here, which is high. And, I guess it's needed to keep up with the inflation that we're seeing, but I don't know if it's sustainable. Discretionary spending is going down. The necessities are still increasing. So we'll see what happens. The Federal Reserve is looking at the jobs market and using that to make their decision about rates, as well as the CPI data. So as long as the job market remains strong, they're going to continue to raise rates, but hopefully slowing at a slower amount than they have been over this year, over in 2022, or at least the past 6 months. Anyway, kind of rambling on here. Liam O'Reilly, Vermont Economic Realtor. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And if you're looking to buy or sell a home, let me know. All right, guys. See you in the next video.